Well, hello everyone and welcome in. We got a program here tonight. My goodness, we have been exposing the Watchtower here all night long. And if you are just coming in for the first time, by all means, we want you to listen in to our good friend Dick Borghi, his wife, of course, Constance, and they are exposing the Watchtower tonight. Now, they're going to be talking about marriage. What did you think about marriage when you were in the Watchtower? Was it kind of a weird thing? Were the marriages that weren't working? Why weren't they working? Well, Dick and Constance tonight, I'm sure, we'll be talking about some of that. So thank you for coming in with us. Let's bring Dick and Constance on right now. Let's do that. Let's add them to the stage. Hello, Dick and Constance.
Hey,
Hi
Rick.
there.
So, my goodness, I'm so glad to have you guys with us tonight. We got a lot of people coming through here. I believe you're going to have a really good program. I'll put the telephone number up, and I'll also put up the link that people can come on if we want them to come on and talk to you. I think that'd be wonderful.
Yes.
All right, so let me do that. I'll cut you guys loose. And in the meantime, I'll put some of this stuff up so people will be able to come into the program tonight. So let me give you solo layout here. All right, solo layout. All right, we got that. All right, go ahead, take it away.
Well, thank you, Rick, and welcome everybody to the Connie and Dick Show. And tonight, our subject matter is marriages in the Watchtower. Are they satisfying? Are they fulfilling? Are they happy? Well, we've been pointing a bright light into the Watchtower for years, for 20 years, for 6 screens. And I would mention that YouTube has a lot of great videos up explaining how cults work, the psychology behind it, and the money that's been generated by these false prophets. But we'll get into that a little later in the program. Right now, we just really want to talk about marriages in the Watchtower. And it's really unfair for people to pick marriage mates in the Watchtower due to a position, such as ministerial servant, elder, pioneer, circuit overseer, because they get married too. And they think, well, if I marry an elder or I marry a circuit overseer, they're going to be good, righteous people because Jehovah's Holy Spirit appoints them. Well, as you all know, if you've been a fan of 6 screens, I was appointed a ministerial servant covering up adultery. And I can guarantee you, and it's been proven, there have been many men that have been appointed elders that were pedophiles. We've said goodbye to a lot of them. Off to jail they went. And we have an organization, the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society, that doesn't think it's such a bad thing for people to view pornography, child pornography. It's not disfellowshipping. If you're an elder, you don't necessarily have to be removed if that comes to light. The problem is, and I mentioned this on Anne Marie's program, that once you put that kind of garbage into your brain, Satan's got control of it. Satan, the thoughtcaster, is going to find a way for you to live out those pedophile fantasies. And you're going to do it in the Kingdom Hall because the Kingdom Hall and all the brothers and sisters in it, the rank and file, think, oh, he's an elder. He's a servant. He would never do something like that. And that's when they strike. In my former congregation, Lowell Highlands congregation, we had 5 known pedophiles that I knew of. The rank and file didn't. And on this program, 6 screens, Rick has a brother working for him. And he mentioned that this guy, his name was Randy Carbonell. He's in jail now for pedophilia, assaulting a youngster somewhere. Don't know all the details. But he came to my house many times. And I actually studied the Bible with a man that was a pedophile, and I brought him right into my house because I didn't even know what pedophilia was. back in the early 80s. And as I mentioned on Anne Marie's program, we have 350,000 children missing, and nobody can find them. That is horrendous. Just goes to show you how the Watchtower and the governments and Satan, how they're really working overtime in these last days. I'm not a last day guy like the Watchtower, Armageddon, but we certainly are coming to the culmination of this wicked system of things.
When you say 350,000, you mean with the border?
At the border, 350,000 kids have come over the border. No parents, just the coyotes are taking them over. Certainly drug cartels. And, they're selling these children to these pedophiles.
There was that one little girl, remember? She was.
Tell us about it.
Well, there's one little girl. It was so sad to see. She was in a little pink outfit, and she only could speak Spanish, but very fluently. And the ICE person came to her and asked her how old she was, and she said she's 2. And he had asked, "Where's your mama and your papi?" And she said, "They're here in the United States." Basically, she was traveling all by herself. She was only 2. And, you have the drug cartels looking for a child like that. And there's many, many children that have been like that because their parents want them to have, a better life here in the United States. And like Rich says, 325,000 to 350,000 children have been missing since the borders have been down. So it's very sad. Children are very vulnerable. They're very innocent. They just listen to what their parents are saying, but they're not aware of how evil it can be and how they can be easily trafficked.
Oh, absolutely. And I was talking about it a little bit on Anne Marie's program about the trafficking. The Watchtower has been involved with pedophilia right from its inception. C.T. Russell was messing around with a 14-year-old girl, called him his little wife.
Rose Ball,
Yep, absolutely. And sent her back to Australia. And so the Watchtower is deeply involved with pedophilia. That may seem a little divorced from the subject of divorce and marriage in the Watchtower, which is our main theme. When you believe that having a position in the Watchtower, like elder or servant or pioneer, if you think that's a badge of honor and that, boy, are you super righteous, well, it's just not true. It's just not true, because if you don't confess your sins, the Holy Spirit does not our Heavenly Father does not pull the Holy Spirit out of the congregation. The elders pick up on it. They do an investigation, and through their Holy Spirit, they find the bad person and they disfellowship him. That's what I was told in 1970. Of course, being very naive, I believed that, but it's just not true.
Well, the point I'd like to say is, in the organization, it's their culture for young people to basically get married very young. Excuse me. And not only get married young, I'm talking about anywhere from 17 to, I'd say, 25. We had several sisters in our congregation that got married very young. The oldest was 25, which to me is still very young. It was all around the year 1975, of course. But anyway, and the point I'd like to make is the fact that they didn't, in the culture of Jehovah's Witnesses, they don't even have the opportunity to really get to know each other very well in the dating process. There we go. Okay. And so the courtship period is very short. Like, I'll give you one example. One sister I was very close to, her name's Mary. She and Ernie, they were dating for 3 months. That was it. 3 months, got married. They've been married all these years. They've had 2 daughters. Mary and Ernie are still in the organization. Their daughters are not. Their daughters never got baptized, didn't want to get baptized. But the point I'm trying to make is Mary and Ernie didn't even really know each other. 3 months? Really? Are you kidding me? So you might say, well, they've been married all these years, must be a happy marriage. No, not necessarily. Just because people stay together, first of all, I'd like to say people get married for a lot of different reasons. It's not necessarily love. A lot of times it's just convenience. That's one issue I'd like to bring out tonight versus genuine love. And in Watchtower, it's not uncommon for people to date for a very, very short period of time because there's so much pressure as far as not doing anything wrong morally. And they don't allow any higher education. And, it's just the way it is among the Jehovah's Witnesses. So like Rich said, a lot of them, the sisters are taught, oh my word, find a brother who is a ministerial servant or an elder. And it's all based on status. It's all based on rank. You don't even know who this person is. You don't even have a clue what this person's personality is like. What do you have in common except the two of you go to the Kingdom Hall and you read the Bible and you go to all the meetings? What do you have in common? And a lot of times, you can read it on Reddit. You can read it on Facebook. You can see many of these unions, marriages. I wouldn't even call it a marriage, but they do get married. But the point I'm trying to make is a lot of them are miserable and they're very, very unhappy. And, we're just trying to bring this out that Watchtower, I've always said it this way, Watchtower sets people up for failure, even when it comes to marriage. You can't just, worldly people, for example, they'll get an opportunity to go out. Maybe it's a co-worker, other people that they know, they hang out, they get together as a group, maybe after work, go have a few drinks or have some dinner and visit and get to know each other. And there's none of this pressure where you have to be married in about 3 months. God forbid, if you're more than 3 months together, what's wrong with you? And, that's absolutely, totally insane because that's not the real world. And you don't even get to know each other really, really well. And in this organization, when you marry for life. So you're putting a lot of eggs in one basket for just knowing someone for a very short period of time, hoping and praying that that's going to be your soulmate. And a lot of times it's not. I just wanted to say this point. This is what I wanted to emphasize tonight. I don't care if it's a witness couple. I don't care if it's a worldly couple. A lot of times people marry for convenience. They marry for convenience. What am I talking about? Versus love. Well, they could be, maybe they're alone. They don't want to be alone. So they get married. Maybe it's for sex. Maybe it's for financial reasons. What other reasons, Rich? What else do you think? Could be for a lot of reasons.
Sure. Pressure's put on them. They'll tell themselves, well, we're going to pioneer together, that type of thing.
Or the expectations of their parents.
Yeah.
Expecting them to be married by a certain time.
Well, actually, one of the things that, it happened in my life, and it happens in a lot of people's lives. If you ask a sister out, well, according to JW rules, written or unwritten, you're supposed to bring a chaperone because the biggest thing they're fearful of is you might touch a girl in the wrong place and it'd be a judicial thing that you should be able to exhibit some self-control in that area, but they're going to do it for you. Bring a chaperone, bring a chaperone, bring a chaperone.
That's even true when you're elderly too, right? In the organization.
Yeah. When you're in your 50s, if you're your second or third wife,
you still have to have a chaperone, right?
That's what they want.
Yeah.
The problem with that is you can't really say what you want to say with someone in the back seat or out at a restaurant, when there's 4 of you at the table. Right. Their big fear is, oh my God, he might kiss her or touch her in the wrong place, or, they're so fearful of that. It shouldn't happen. But you know what? You've got to be able to exert your own self-control and not rely on the chaperones in the back.
Well, they're over-sexualized in the organization. you know.
Of course.
And it is spiritual abuse. That's one thing I wanted to say tonight.
Hmm.
A lot of spiritual abuse in this organization.
Yeah. And, you know, with the witnesses, I knew a brother in my Kingdom Hall. He went out with a sister 3, 4, 5 times maybe. And it lasted about 6 months. And she was getting like, well, if you're going out with someone for 6 months, that's just about an engagement. The same thing as an engagement. And then the brother said, well, you know, she just doesn't float my boat anymore.
She's not the one.
She's not the one.
Right.
Well, I pull him in the back room saying you're playing around with people's emotions and so forth. Part of finding the right one is really dating a lot, meeting a lot of different women, weighing one against the other. And when you get older, you're going to make better decisions. You know, the longer you can stay single and not get involved in immorality or anything like that, the better off you're going to be, because the kind of women or girls that I liked when I was 14 was not the same type of woman I liked when I was 18, and certainly not the same time I liked when I was 22 or 23.
Right.
We change.
We grow.
You know, we grow. And things that I used to think was wonderful in a woman just wasn't years later. I can remember my mother, there was a girl that I was going out with in high school, and my mother said, why do you like her? And I said, well, she's a cheerleader. And I said, well, but why do you like her? Man, she's a cheerleader. Like, that's all there is to it. She's a cheerleader. You know, she's got I didn't say it to my house, she's got a nice body, but you know.
But the
that's
status
the way,
of being a cheerleader with the football players.
That was
and
it,
all
right?
That. Yeah.
I mean,
but you didn't know anything about her personality, right?
No.
That's what your mom was saying. She wanted to know
what do you like
how
about
superficial
her?
or, you know.
And the only thing I could say is she's a cheerleader. You know?
Yeah.
But that brother, they were, you know, really going to hammer him because he said, I've gone out with her, you know, for 6 months or maybe even longer. I don't know. Yeah. And he said, I want to call it off. Yeah. Actually, he did get engaged. Excuse me. I got ahead of myself in the story. Okay. He did get engaged with her. And then while he was in that state, they said, well, the same thing as being married, except you can't have sex. So he told her, I want my ring back, and I don't want to marry you. And she had a nervous breakdown, and she cried all over the place. I'm told. I got this from her father. Okay, so that's what I know.
But you know, it's a good thing that he found that out before they got married versus after.
Absolutely.
You know. Now we had a sister in our congregation. Her name was Doris. She was a lovely sister. She was very pretty, African American sister, just very, very pretty. And had never been married. And she dated this one gentleman, and they were, he apparently had been a father. So I'm assuming he had been married. He had a couple of kids. Don't know anything about his background except he was a father, had a couple of children, 2 or 3. And so she got engaged to him. She thought he was a lovely brother. And anyway, this was back in the 70s. And anyway, she realized he wasn't the one, and she called it off. And there was not a lot of flack in our congregation with regards to that. I mean, I thought our congregation was pretty cool. Didn't know that, you know, you had to, within about 6 months, have to be married. I didn't know that. But I think our group of elders that we had were really pretty cool elders. And she broke it off, and she and I would go out in service occasionally, and the conversation came up, and I had asked her what happened. She says, well, he was a very nice brother. He had a couple of children. I would have stepped in, and she had no children of her own, right? So she had never been married. So she said, I would have instantly been a mother to his children. But she said, I really realized that he wasn't so much in love with me. He was just basically looking for a wife and a mother for his children. And she says, when I found that out, I realized, whoa, this is not the guy for me. So she called it off. And, you know, I don't know if the brothers talked to her or not, but, you know, she wasn't bitter or anything when she spoke to me. I mean, it was, everything was fine. And then she did find another brother from San Francisco down the road. And, you know, he didn't have any children. She didn't have any kids. And, you know, they seemed to have been very compatible, and they got married. So, it's better to find this information out way before you get married. And Watchtower puts that pressure on people,
Mhm.
Rich.
Mhm.
That's not right, because there's so much involved in getting married. And I was married I was single for many, many years. I loved being single. I did. I loved it.
Till I came along.
That's right. I didn't think I'd ever find you. Took me my whole life, but I enjoyed being single. It was a great, great life, and I just strongly suggest and encourage that. Get your own education, make your own money, have your own career, get your own apartment, fix it up the way you want, have friends over, have a wonderful Friday, Saturday night dinner with friends. Enjoy your life. I mean, get to know who you are, develop your circle of friends. That's what life is. That's what it is growing up. And a lot of witnesses, they grow up, they miss out on all that. They go
Absolutely.
from their parents' home right to their husband's home. And God forbid, something ever happened to the husband, some of them wouldn't even know how to write a check. That's a big mistake.
Yeah, we had an elder in my congregation, and he was very supportive of his son quitting high school at 16 to pioneer. Of course, in those days, Armageddon was coming in 75.
Yeah.
So it kind of made sense. But even today, they discourage going to college or going to a trade school or something.
Yeah.
When you listen to the Watchtower, you're going to find yourself in a very, very bad predicament towards middle age and senior, being a senior citizen.
Oh my, yes.
You're going to find yourself in a really, really difficult.
Financially, you're talking about, Rich.
Financially.
Yeah.
And, you don't have any happiness. You've always got Armageddon ready to fall on your head. And if you make the slightest mistake, you watch something you shouldn't on TV, that's it. You're out of here. You're not going to be in the new system. It's always hanging over your head. Most Jehovah's Witnesses that are still in are dealing with post-traumatic stress syndrome. Even because you're having death hanging over your head. You've got to be good. I read a psych book one time, and there was a gentleman that was convicted of some crime, and they were going to hang him. And he dwelled on his hanging so much that he got welts all around his neck where the noose would be.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of Jehovah's Witnesses that don't realize it, but they have PTSD. I know when I was a NAM and I come back out, years later, I was diagnosed with PTSD. And you don't know it while you're going through it.
Right.
As that expression goes, you don't know what you don't know.
Right. Right.
So,
well, and Armageddon's always so imminent. And that's where the PTSD and the nightmares, and especially for the JWs who were born and raised in the organization, they have a lot of PTSD.
So this
trauma, emotional
this
trauma.
16-year-old brother,
Yeah.
Whose father was an elder and quit high school, and congratulations, you're going to be a pioneer. They announced it at the service meeting. Everybody's clapping and smiling. This guy has what, a 10th or 11th grade education.
So he didn't finish high school?
No, he quit it
Okay.
when he turned 16. I think he was in the 10th or the 11th grade.
Okay.
He didn't get that diploma.
Okay.
I would just like the audience to know that you can't even get in the military right now unless you have a high school diploma.
Wow.
So anyway,
That's good.
there's a lot of jobs. What year did you graduate? Well, I didn't graduate. See you later.
Right. Well, it's on every application.
Because they see you as a quitter.
Right.
Right. So anyway,
That you don't follow through.
this brother, he pioneers, and then when he's 20 years old, he's a ministerial servant, and then what happens? He got some girl pregnant.
Okay.
And he gets disfellowshipped, gets reinstated, gets a 1-bedroom apartment for him, the wife, and the baby.
Like a 1-bedroom or a studio?
No. Well, I don't know. It was either
Okay.
1-bedroom or a studio,
Yeah,
right?
studios are cheaper.
But at least, when I became a father for the first time, at least it was a 2-bedroom apartment. You could put the cradle in the crib, and in the other room, and
Mhm.
you know,
Mhm.
you could have a little privacy. But
Mhm.
my kids always cried all night, so it was kind of crazy. But it's tough sledding. It really is. If you only have a 10th grade education.
Yes.
So
Yes.
what you tend to do is you lock on to brothers that have a painting business, carpet shampooing business,
Mm.
cleaning windows business, and you're always working for somebody. You're working for 10 cents over minimum wage, whatever that is at the time.
No benefits.
You can't feed your kid. You're on subsidized rent. You're on food stamps. You're on fuel assistance.
Mm.
You're saying, what a terrible government we live under. Well, that terrible government that you're living under is paying your rent
Mhm.
because you can't get a decent enough job to afford it.
Right.
They're paying your food stamps,
Right.
your
That comes from the federal government, which is the taxpayers.
fuel assistance.
Mhm.
You know, you're
Mhm.
living off the,
Living off the system.
yeah,
Mhm.
you're a prostitute of the state.
Mhm. They're taking advantage of the system.
Yeah, that's just how the Watchtower is set up.
Mhm.
Okay, now when you move down the road and you're in your mid 30s and so forth,
Mm.
well, before I even talk about that, so you're in your 20s.
Okay.
So what does a normal person, male or female, want to do when they're in their 20s? Okay, they want to get married. Probably the primary reason people get married is so they can have sex. That's a known fact,
Especially among the JWs
especially
and the
because
Mormons.
they talk about sex all the time. I
Yeah.
think I learned the facts of life when I was 9 years old. My kids knew when they were 5 or 6 years old.
From
Yeah.
the Kingdom Hall? do you
Yeah, from the Kingdom Hall.
Yeah.
Oh,
From the
absolutely.
meetings.
From the meetings,
Yeah.
you know,
That's inappropriate.
it is.
Kids should not
It
be
is.
learning that at the
Yeah.
meetings, not when they're children.
Daddy, what's foreplay? No,
Yeah.
he's 8 years old, or
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
it's tough.
You could say it's the musical group.
Yeah, you could say that. And you know who it's worse for? It's worse for the Bethelites. They go to Bethel, now they get aged on 18, I guess. And the younger, the naiver they are, get them in there.
Oh, yeah.
Work their butts off.
Mm.
And if someone's stupid enough to stay 20 or 30, even 40, or some have done that, right?
Mm. Yeah.
Well, when they decide to downsize, what's your severance package? Bus ticket. Go back to your congregation. They'll take care of you.
There is.
Go back to your congregation. They don't even know who you are.
Right.
Never heard of you.
Right.
Well, I've been in Bethel for 40 years. So,
Well, see, let me just stop you right there.
yeah.
The Bethelites are under the false impression that when you become a Bethelite and you dedicate your life to Jehovah and you take this oath of poverty for X amount of years, that you have, like, quote unquote, I'll say it this way, job security. Oh, you're never going to be laid off. This is Jehovah's organization, right? I'll be here the rest of my life. Yeah, well, then when the time has come for these ones, like say if they've been there, they're in their 50s or 60s, rich, they have no Social Security. There's no pension. There's no 401. There's no portfolio. There's nothing. They don't have anything to fall back on. Nothing. So all those years, they're walking out the door. There's no severance pay. There's nothing. And yet, if you were working for a corporation, you based on quarters, which is just a period of time, that is, put into your Social Security. Your employer pays part of it, and you pay part of it. So when the time comes you retire, you have Social Security at the age of 65. Well, some of them are a little bit longer, 68, 69. But the point is that the Bethelites don't have anything. And that's pretty darn scary, let alone no medical, Rich.
Yeah. How would you like to be a Bethelite and you work 30 years into printery? You probably get some forms of cancer because you're touching
the
ink
chemicals.
the ink all the time. You're sick. And you say, Watchtower, what am I going to do? I've got no money. I've got no family. My congregation has split 3 times. They sold off my Kingdom Hall. What am I going to do? Can you help me out? You've got $10 billion in Ireland. Can you help me maybe a couple of grand? Hell no, we ain't paying you nothing. You were stupid enough to work for us for 30 years. Go pound sand.
Well, that's it. And the thing is that, like you say, Watchtower's worth $10 billion. And who's crying now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who is crying now? And many Jehovah's Witnesses, when they do get married, they don't have children. Now, of course, we know there's some that do, but many don't. You have 2 boys. They don't have any children. They're not fathers.
No.
And that's done intentionally. Oh, the new system is coming. The new system is coming. The new system is coming. Yeah, well, it hasn't come. They've been saying that since the late 1800s. But the point is that, they're thrown out on the street and they don't even have a support system as a family unit where, in some cultures, like say the Latin culture or the Asian cultures, the mother, father, the kids, they all pull together their resources to help one another. That's part of their culture. Not so much in the Caucasian world. It's basically you're by yourself or your husband and wife is a unit. But the point I'm trying to make is if you don't have children and you're thrown out of Bethel and you have no support system, where do you go? You go to the welfare office.
That's what you do.
They say go to your local congregation to take care of you. No, they're not going to do that. And the ones that are crying are the ones that put all their hope and trust in this organization and realized, oh my gosh, I've just wasted my life. I thought I was doing this for Jehovah God and find out I wasn't. So it's very sad. And the other point I'd like to say, governing body members, I hate to say it, but they're laughing all the way. They just used you and abused you for everything that they could get from you for free so that they could profit financially, which is what they've done to all of us.
Connie's exactly right. I couldn't have said it better myself. They're terrible. They won't help a brother that's in his 60s or 70s. They told him, get out. We're not going to give you anything. The congregation will take care of you. That's a lie. It just to Connie's point about not my 2 sons, they don't have any children. Mm-hmm. There isn't one father on the governing body today. Now you read into that what you may. My read is, well,
Tony Morris was.
Yeah, but Tony Morris isn't on anymore. Okay,
right.
So there isn't any brother on the governing body, all 8 or 9 of them. No. I don't know about the 2 new ones. I don't know too much about them. But prior to those 2 new ones going on, so what does that tell you? I mean, to me, my thing, since I know Watchtower is so close, I think pedophilia could be an issue. I don't know. I can't prove it.
Well, I don't think they value families, period.
Yeah.
I know they don't value women, and I know they don't value children. And overall, I don't think they value families. And then, so Tony Morris was the only one that did have children, but he's been removed. So that's the term, removed, which is disfellowshipped. That's my understanding. Yeah. So he's out of the picture now. But then you have, oh boy, it'll come to me. Anyway, he's single. Mark, what's his name? Mark Sanderson. There we go. He's single. Can you imagine? He's a governing body member and he's single.
Yeah, and he
makes you wonder about that.
Yeah, I'm sure he's the one.
And he's in his 50s, right? Huh?
Yeah, I'm sure he's been celibate all his life. I couldn't do it. He's a better man than I guess. Sure, he's been single all his life, huh? And he's never had sex. Okay.
Guess he's used his pillow. I don't know.
Well, right? I got a bridge in Brooklyn, right? Is that where it's in Brooklyn? Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But anyway, back to the topic of marriage, huh?
Yeah.
Marriage is a real big commitment. You don't take it lightly. And let's face it, there's more sisters. There are a lot more sisters in the organization than there are brothers. That was one thing that really ticked me off because, we had a huge disadvantage, and even sisters today have a huge disadvantage, right? So it's like, well, I'm interested in finding someone. I'd like to get married, but, you can't find the person you're looking for in the organization, because there aren't too many, and of the ones that are you really interested in them? Or is it just their title or what? My suggestion is don't worry about it. Just be single, enjoy your life, develop yourself, work on developing yourself the very best that you can. Go get an education. You love music, go for music. You love sports, go for sports. Develop yourself to become the very best person you can possibly be. Develop the inner person of who you are. Make yourself shine inside. That's what you need to do. And, if the time comes, you find the right person, go for it. But if not, you're going to be fine in the meantime. But Watchtower has this culture that, oh my God forbid you're a woman and you're not married. I never went for that nonsense. Never. I never did.
There's a lot of things that make marriage is it's difficult if you don't have the right tools.
If you're not married to the right person.
If you're not married to the right person, everybody looks prim and proper at the Kingdom Hall. They look prim and proper out in service. But if you've got these mundane jobs, carpet shampoo, window washer, that type of thing, security guard, it's difficult to run a marriage on minimum wage or $1 over minimum wage because things are so expensive today.
Yeah.
One thing that'll kill a marriage, all right. The number one number one thing that kills marriage is sex outside of marriage. The number two thing that kills marriages is financial problems. Yeah. People are screaming.
A lot of stress.
The husband I just bought a toothbrush for 99 cents. We can't afford that. What's wrong with you? Use your old toothbrush.
Or whatever.
Whatever. It just comes off the top of my head.
Yeah.
But that's how it's hard to run a marriage when you can't pay the rent, or you can't get the car fixed, or you get laid off.
The car.
Oh, yeah.
And the car breaks down.
Yep.
And you don't have any extra money saved away, because you needed it for something else. Oh my gosh. And then yet the rent still has to be paid, or the mortgage has to be paid, and then the kids are sick and they've got to go to the ER. I mean, it's just going to be nonstop. A lot of times people today, with what's been going on the last 4 years, they can't make it. I'm telling you. And they've been using their credit cards. You start living on your credit cards. Oh my gosh. You've got a huge problem there, because it's like digging a hole and you can't get out of it. And, the system is set up that way, which is so unfortunate.
Yeah. 15% interest on those credit cards.
Oh, it's more than that, Rich.
And then you know what's happening?
It's more than that.
Once they get overloaded, they can't pay. So they go to this wicked system of things that JW was always talking about. The governments are so corrupt, and they are. But you know what? Why would you go to a corrupt government asking for help? Food. I keep on saying it. Food stamps, fuel assistance, all that stuff. Bankruptcies. Gee, I owe all the credit cards and I owe everybody. Well, go to the government and they'll write you a release, and all those bills are paid. And they do it every 7 years.
But then they're stealing from the system.
Well, that's what they're doing.
They're stealing from the system.
Yeah. Once I get over my head, through bankruptcy.
Yeah.
And
a lot of them did that in terms of right before 1975.
Yeah.
They wanted this and that, and they didn't have the cash. So they started charging up their credit cards. Well, who cares? We don't have to pay it back because
that's right.
The new system's coming, right? I mean, I worked for the San Francisco AIDS office in San Francisco. Okay. And there were AIDS patients that thought, well, it's just a matter of time before I'm going to die from this horrific disease. I'm going to charge this, charge that, go on this trip as long as I can, and charge it because I'm going to be dead. I don't have to pay for it. And they did. And that's just very irresponsible. But witnesses did the same thing.
We're kind of gearing this program for the PMOs out there.
Yeah.
The young ones especially.
Yeah.
Just want you to know if you're going to sail into marriage in the Watchtower, you got to be careful, because I know what I'm going to tell you now happens all the time. I've heard all the stories about it. I was on servant body in my Kingdom Hall, and I worked with elders. in a remodeling company. I heard all the stories. I heard more stories as we drank our beers on Wednesday night because it was a non-meeting night. We called it a business meeting. Yeah, we're business drinking beers. There wasn't one of us that left there and should have been driving.
You're over the limit.
Way over the limit.
Everyone was.
Yeah. But anyway, the point, that I'm driving at is that oh gee, I just lost my point.
It's okay. Talking about working with the elders and all that.
Yeah.
You wanted to say something to the young people.
Yeah, to the young people, just be careful, because these elders, they feel that they can impose on your relationship. They can ask you questions about your finances. They can ask you why you're not going out in service. They can ask you what kind of car you own, where you live. Do you know of anybody that's committing any sins in the congregation? Because the elders feel that the Holy Spirit's been taken from the congregation. If you're getting married in the Watchtower, you're going to have people looking at what you do, especially family. What are you doing?
Family members.
Family members, they're going to be looking at your finances. They're going to want to know your sex life. Oh, that's big. That's big. Do you do this in bed?
Oh,
do you do that in bed? You're going to have people being intrusive in your life. And a lot of Jehovah's Witnesses, well, they're elders. That the governing body is telling them to ask these questions. Do you? How much money do you give to the Kingdom Hall every month?
See, there's no boundaries in this organization.
They have
none.
No boundaries at all. So that's for you young PMOs out there, and maybe you midlife people. I'd like to ask you a question.
Okay. What's your question?
The question is this. How many successful, well-balanced people that have good lives, they're in their 60s or 70s, even 50s, 50, 60, 70 years old, that are solid? They have their mortgages are paid. They have a pension. They have their Social Security.
The cars are paid off.
The cars are paid off. They can go on vacation when they want.
They're not living in debt or paycheck to paycheck.
They are hoping that the kids will help them out. How many 60, 70-year-old Jehovah's Witness couples do you know that are financially solvent, secure?
Well,
that's a rhetorical question.
You want
but
people just to think about it, and then maybe I can give that example of.
Yeah, please do. That would be appropriate.
Okay. Well, we always try to come up with some interesting topics for our show, and something that's really applicable. And I was looking at Reddit this week, and it was very, very interesting. Boy, there's a lot of conversations going on in the XJW community with Reddit. But anyway, the point I wanted to make ties in with our subject tonight. And it made me very, very sad, this story that I'm about to tell you. But then at the same time, it made me very angry at the same time. It really did. So this is what I'd like to share with you. You think it's okay to mention what that brother's name is on Reddit, or should I just not say what his name is?
This one here?
Yeah. No, not that one.
No, that one? No, go ahead.
Okay. Well, anyway, he's on Reddit, and it's current. It was just this week. And this gentleman, I'm 69, Rich is 76. I think we look pretty darn good for our age.
If I don't say so myself.
I keep you healthy. Got to eat healthy.
She does.
A lot of vitamins, a lot of good health. So anyway, what I wanted to say is this gentleman is 65. Just 4 years younger than me. And he was an elder, and he was also a regular pioneer, and he is married, and he didn't say anything about children. So I didn't think he had any kids. In fact, I'm almost sure, when you read. So what I'm about to tell you is proves that I don't think he had any children, because he had no support. This is where I'm going. Anyway, so he woke up like 10 years ago at the age of 55. Didn't say what caused him to wake up, but he woke up. Like I said, he had been an elder and a regular pioneer. Okay, this is the point I'm trying to make. So he's 65. His wife, I'm sure, is somewhere about the same age as he is. And he has to drive 4 hours just to get to his job. So it's far away. Okay, that's serious distance. And he doesn't make very much money at all. Didn't say what he does for a living, but there's no education beyond high school. And he's struggling financially. And because the commute is so far, he's not driving back and forth. So he gets there for 4 hours driving. And his boss has this big barn. So I picture he's out in some rural area somewhere. Okay. And his boss has a big barn that's 100 years old. And this brother, he's out now. But anyway, he sleeps in this barn at night. The barn's 100 years old. And he sleeps like, on a foam mattress or something. And that's where he sleeps, okay, during the week. Now, his wife, she works, but she's only making $15 an hour. That's it. And with her job, he didn't say what company or where it was. She doesn't make very much, but she does have health insurance, and the health insurance covers him. So I said to Rich, how it would work most likely is that her employer is paying for her, but then when you add a spouse, that has to be deducted from her $15 an hour, her paycheck, so that her husband is covered. Okay, so they're hanging on by a shoestring financially, okay? And on the weekend, she has like Saturday off, and they only have one day together, like Saturday. And then yet he has to work Sunday. So that's sort of sad, that they are the age they are. And it's just getting up every day, going to work. Okay. So what is my point? Well, this gentleman, his name, it'll come to me, Logic. His name's Logic. Guy. Logic. Logic Man, or just Logic. He's on Reddit. I hope he's listening tonight. I really do.
Logic Man.
Logic Man. Okay, that's his name. And my heart went out to him because there's another part to the story that I want to share with you. So apparently, I got the impression he was born and raised in the organization. Okay. Didn't go to college, didn't really invest much in a career. And so he's at this point in his life that, oh my gosh, I got to get up every single day and I got to go to work. Most likely go to a work you don't like, especially when you're not making much money and there's not much future. And you feel like you're almost like a slave. You do. I mean, I've had jobs like that. You feel that way. Got to get up and do what you got to do because you got to pay the bills. That's what it is. Anyway, he knows of this man that I think he just pretty much grew up with. Maybe it was a neighbor. He didn't go into details. I'm very detailed, so didn't say anything about that. But he knows this man, so just listen to me on this. And this man finished high school about the same time he did. And this man went to college. He got a bachelor's degree in business administration. This brother sort of downplayed it a little bit, but that's the brother's ignorance. He doesn't know what's involved in a college degree. There's a lot of work involved, a lot of studies, a lot of exams, a lot of projects, a lot of group discussions in class and so forth. And he sort of played it down. So anyway, but this man got a bachelor's degree in business admin, which is a very good degree. It's very marketable. Then he moved on and he got a master's degree. So good for him. There's 6 years of college right there. So, excuse me, as a result, he ended up being able to be a parole officer. Now, a parole officer, for some of you might not know, is somebody who works right in the prisons with all the prisoners. And it's a very, very tough job. Sometimes you get jumped. My degree is in human services with an emphasis in counseling. I could use it as a police officer, a sheriff, parole officer. It's an umbrella degree. And so a lot of times parole officers have their degree in human services, but it's a very dangerous job. A worker, a supervisor I worked with, her husband was a PO, a parole officer, and in California. And anyway, he got jumped. He got jumped by several prisoners at one time. Wasn't killed, but they did some serious damage to his back. And then I guess I'm sure he went out in disability. His back was never the same.
Mhm.
Anyway, so it's a very tough position. The point I'm trying to make is, you get into civil service, right? Or the federal government. And in order to get positions like that, they have to do a background check on you to make sure, well, first of all, you have to apply for the job. Second of all, you have to take an exam and you have to score very, very high. And then generally, if you're between the first 3 or 5 candidates with the highest score, this is how civil service works. I've been in that. Then what you do, and you've passed the whole background check, there's no crime. They do your fingerprint, no drugs, nothing of that nature, no criminal background. Then you get an interview. And if you score very high in the interview, then, and you do really well, then you can get the job. Well, he got the job, this gentleman, and he moved his way up. And it sounds like, when he was young, and he tucked money away. And he did very, very well. And this brother is comparing his life to this gentleman who's a parole officer, who has a master's degree. And so this gentleman that was a parole officer was very, very wise with his money. And I worked for the city and county of San Francisco, and they had a plan that, you take your paycheck and you tuck money away, tuck it away. It's called deferred comp. And, just give you an example, my friend Stella, she was in payroll, didn't have a high school education, but she was a payroll clerk, was there 30 years. I don't know how she did the same job for 30 years. I'd go nuts, but some people do.
Mhm.
Anyway, and she was able to tuck away $250,000, $250,000. She just had a high school education. But this is what happens when you can get into a civil service position where it's union and you're getting pay raises and there's steps. It's a 5-tier step. Anyway, and then a lot of times what you do is you apply for other positions that are paying more. So the point I'm trying to make is this brother was comparing himself to this gentleman, and it was a parole officer. And the parole officer could retire at the age of 57, but he was able to retire at the age of 54. Okay, now, so the JW, 65, right? He's 65 and his friend's been retired since he's 54. And he's worked very, very hard for his education and for his career and his financial success. And the witness is looking at himself and his wife. She's making $15 an hour, and he didn't say how much he's making. And her company covers him for medical, and they're just struggling financially. Now, we've heard Rick say that a lot of couples, or a lot of JWs, are struggling financially. Some of them are sleeping in their car, they're sleeping in the parking lot at the Kingdom Halls and so forth. But, when I read this story, Rich, I felt very, very sad for this man. I mean, you just feel like, oh my gosh, well, that's what he said. He said in the Reddit, just like this, what in the hell happened? That's what he said.
Mhm.
How in the hell did this happen to my life? Well, it happened because he believed Watchtower's lies that the end of the system was coming, and don't invest any time or effort
Mhm.
because the system's going to, collapse anyway.
Mhm.
Well, who's crying now? It's this couple, and they got to get up every single day at their age. And yet, they're barely hanging on. And if the other thing is that if she ever lost her job and there's no medical, oh my word, Rich,
And,
they'd be in big trouble.
Nobody cared that he was an elder for 20
No.
years or 30 years.
No.
Barbara had a brother on, and he went to prison because, he wouldn't avail himself to the draft.
Right.
Okay, so he made the Jehovah's Witness stance, even though in C.T. Russell's time you could join the military, but that's a story for another time.
Well, this brother lived in New Mexico for people.
Yeah.
A few months back.
Right.
With this year, he lived in New Mexico.
He said, when he came back to his congregation, it was like, oh, wow, he's back, and let's take him to dinner. It was like, like nothing ever happened.
Mm-mm.
So, and nobody appreciated it.
And he was gone for 2 years.
He was gone for 2 years in prison,
They-
behind bars,
Yeah.
because of the Watchtower decree that you can't join the military.
Well, and you might tell people a little bit, Rich, not that you went to prison because you didn't with regards to war, but you might explain, I think a lot of brothers and sisters are very naive. Like, well, if you don't participate in the military, then you go to prison. What is expected? What happens when people are in prison, Rich, for 2 years? What do you think that brother experienced?
Well, first of all, if you go to prison, you better be a tough guy. You better be a big, tough guy. Most guys are in prison because they're criminals, they're gangsters, and they know how to fight. They know how to pull a switchblade, pull a shank, whatever. Some of these very docile brothers, who just trying to save the world, they go to prison. First thing that happens to a new guy is he gets raped.
Yeah.
That's almost standard operational procedure.
HIV is very common.
Oh, very, very common.
And hepatitis B is very common among prisoners.
Yeah, men that would see themselves as a heterosexual and wouldn't go the queer route. If they're in prison after 10 years or so, well, that's the only flush around. So a lot of them
They're
become...
sodomized.
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of them they'll go over to the homosexual thing because that's the only sex that's...
Oh, I see what you're saying. But I'm just saying that in the culture of the criminals in prison, that's their ritual, right?
That's their ritual.
You gotta sodomize somebody else.
As they say, they bend you over, and you don't have a choice when there's 5 guys. They take turns on you.
Wow.
So going to prison for the JWs is really a very, very bad. This brother did that.
Yeah.
And when he came out, nobody said, "Oh, good job."
Thank you for being such a
yeah,
loyal brother to
thank you.
Jehovah and a wonderful example.
Nothing.
Right.
He got nothing from nobody. They didn't even know who he was.
Right.
Half of them didn't even know who he was.
Well, and they didn't care.
And
Rich.
they did. Same with the Watchtower.
Right.
The Watchtower
They didn't care.
doesn't care about its people.
Right.
Only care about the bottom line. They only
The
care
cash,
about
the money.
Yep. It's it's a business.
It's a
And
corporation.
It's a corporation,
Yeah.
and if you're naive enough to believe the BS that they're throwing at you,
Yeah.
you deserve it.
Well, people, I think a lot of JWs are well-meaning people, but they're very innocent. They're very, what's the word I'm trying to think? They're not innocent. They're very naive. They're very naive. They're very naive.
Well, I can tell you, after graduation, I was 18. I joined the Marines. It's all I ever wanted to be ever since I was 8 years old. I wanted to be a U.S. Marine, and I got to be that. And then, I was told that, Armageddon was coming in 75, and if you weren't a Jehovah's Witness, you were going to die. And then I think of it, if I would have stayed in the Marines, I probably would have been a first sergeant or gunnery sergeant, would be my guess. I would have retired at age 38.
Yeah, you wanted to put in 20 years.
20 years.
From 18 to 38, 20 years. That's
I
a
mean,
nice retirement.
Yeah. It was a very nice retirement.
Can I stop you there
Yeah,
for
go
just
ahead.
1 minute?
Yeah.
Keep your thought.
Mhm.
When I worked for the city and county of San Francisco, I worked in several departments. I love that. One of them I spent the most was at San Francisco International Airport, SFO. And I was in airfield safety. That was fun. You got to see Air Force One, come in for a landing. It was really cool. But anyway, right there, right outside your window. But anyway, Clay Scott was the manager. He got his job from Diane Feinstein because they were personal friends, and she opened up that job for Clay. What's the point I'm trying to make? Well, Clay had been a Green Beret, and he had 20 years. Then he started at SFO, and he was working on a second pension. Dale Dunham, he was another one. He had worked 20 years in the military. I'm not sure what branch. I'm sure it wasn't a Marine. But anyway, and then he was working on a second one. My other boss, Don Whitaker, same thing. So they were really smart. They went into the military at 18 already, like Rich says, by 38, that goes by so darn fast.
Yeah.
20 years, they got 20 years. There's your pension right there. And then started a second pension. You could work from, say 40, however long it takes you to get settled into another, maybe 45.
From 38 to 68, that's 30 years.
Oh my
Another 30.
gosh.
Bob McCluskey, one of my
Yes.
best friends growing up, he's got 2 pensions,
Yep. Yep.
and he goes on vacation where he wants. He lives in a
Yep.
beautiful home.
Yep.
But these Jehovah's Witnesses that put Jehovah first,
Right.
actually put the governing body first. They put the Watchtower
corporation,
first,
right?
put the corporation first.
Right.
They're broke, they're busted. And what happens if you spend 30 years as an elder and the other elders don't like you for something?
Yeah.
And you don't want to go along with the program? They'll find any reason to disfellowship you.
Well, and not all
Well-
the elders get along either. We
No,
know
they
that.
don't.
Talking to Joe,
Yeah.
they're not all very
And-
loving and kind. Sometimes there's been some, swear words with each other and even physical fights. huh?
Fights, yeah.
Yeah, and the average rank and file doesn't know that.
Neil Sharp told me that too.
Yeah, it's not all peaches and cream. It's
Okay.
not what they think.
Oh, I'm sorry. hon.
That's
Did,
okay.
did you want to finish your thought?
No, I was just going to say in reference to this. So the point I'd like to make is, make some wise choices with your life, especially when you're young. I know it's really hard if you're still living at home with your parents,
Mhm.
but this brother, like I said, I was very sad when I read this on Reddit. His name's Logic Man. I really hope he's listening, Rich. I really
Mhm.
do.
I do too.
But then it made me very angry because, they're the ones that lost. You can't go back and take that. You can't go back and rewind the clock at all. His years are gone. And so, I'm sure every day he's depressed.
Mhm.
When you have to worry about finances, how you're going to pay your bills, that's very stressful. And Watchtower just strips you away of all of that, your own personal identity, your dreams, your goals. Most religions don't do that, but really Watchtower is not a religion. They're
No,
not.
it's
They're
not.
a cult. And the thing is, what I just would really like to emphasize, we've been watching a lot of videos. It's spiritual abuse. I mean, that's the bottom line of Watchtower.
Mhm.
They abuse everybody spiritually. And unfortunately, a lot of JWs, think that this is Jehovah's True organization. Well, you're just being a pawn, you're just a pawn. My mom used to say this, Connie, when the time comes that I die, she says, nobody's going to be paying your bills, not one of those elders. And she says, money does not grow on trees. You mark my word. She says, they tell you can't go get a college education. She says, you wait. She says, that's going to be on you. That's not going to be on them. They're not going to be around. And I knew she was telling the truth, Rich.
Mhm.
My mom was not a witness. She studied, but she didn't get baptized. She was very smart. So, we have to make really wise choices today because it will affect tomorrow. And, you want to enjoy your life. You can still you can still love God. You can still study his word. You can still do all of that. But Watchtower has absolutely no boundaries. They think that they can intrude on every single facet of your life.
Yeah.
Even I remember this one sister was trying to tell me, why do you want to waste your time going to college? Well, because I know what it's like when you have to struggle financially after my dad died, right? But what'd she do? At 17, she went and got married. Yeah, her husband was her meal ticket.
Mhm.
If he ever walked out, what is she going to do? They
That's
had
right.
3 kids later. I wasn't looking for a man to support me. I mean, if you find the guy, that's great, but don't marry him for the convenience of a paycheck. There's no love there. I mean, a marriage should be based on, what do you both have to offer each other? It shouldn't be 100%, 0%, has to be 50-50. You got to work together. But that doesn't happen when you're young. That takes time to develop through the years, doesn't it, Rich?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it does.
Well, we've been talking for an hour and 20 minutes straight. And we really should give the audience
Yeah.
a chance to hit *6 if you have any stories, JW marriages that are wonderful. We could hear that.
Yeah.
If you have any stories that they're
Let's see.
horrible, we'll take that too. So, like I said, we've been talking for an hour and a half straight. Now it's your turn. *6 if you want to comment on anything to do with marriages in the Watchtower.
Don't be bashful.
Mhm.
Are there people listening?
Is there anybody out there? Anybody? Star 6. I can't believe there's nobody out there that wants to chime in.
No, because in
I don't know, Rick.
California, it's only 8:15.
Are we allowing people to
Yeah, star 6 to unmute yourself. We don't hear anybody. Rick, are you there? Somebody.
You're gonna give me a complex. We worked on this for days.
We don't hear anybody.
How's your marriage in the Watchtower? Were you happy as a married Jehovah's Witness? I don't. Did we get cut off?
No, I don't know.
Rick, you out there?
Hello.
There
Yes.
we go.
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Hello.
Oh my.
Oh, there's something wrong with the system. Yeah, Anne Marie, is that you?
No, it's not Anne Marie.
Oh, it's not? It sounds like her.
Go ahead. We can hear you. There's a problem, Rich.
There's a problem. I think it's one of our best programs too.
Yeah, I don't know. We can hear you.
Hello.
Yes, go ahead. We can hear you.
Hello.
Oh, there's something wrong with the system.
Hello.
Rick was having a
I can
problem.
hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear both of you.
Yeah, I can hear.
Yeah, it looks
Go
like
ahead.
the phone line is not connected to the program because obviously you and I can hear each other. But
That's why they keep talking and nobody's saying anything.
exactly
that-
right. And it's been
Is that you? Something's going on. They could hear us, huh?
Yeah.
Welcome to My One Number, muted.
You ever talk? I'm
this is a
Rochelle.
great topic. Oh, nice to meet you. This is a great topic. I'd love to chime in on this, but
Yeah, go ahead, Stefan or Rochelle. We can hear you.
nobody's here.
What was the topic about? I didn't hear.
I was going to try to reach the StreamYard. At the beginning of the show, they listed a StreamYard URL, which is streamyard.com / a bunch of characters. And I'm not even sure that is working. I'm making sure I don't have a
Maybe,
type.
you know what, Rich? Maybe what we should do is just
9JNMGFR.
you want to get your phone on? I can't even get your phone on.
Because oops, there's nobody there. So nothing
Yeah,
seems to be set up.
How in the heck?
Okay.
So the only hope is that Rick happens to sit down and look at the chat and see that everything is down.
Well, can you hear me right now?
There we go.
Oh, okay.
Can you hear me, Constance?
Yeah, honey, we can hear you, Rick.
Yeah,
We
well, I don't know what he's saying.
We
Uh,
can hear the audience. We can hear Stefan and Rochelle, but they
talking
can't
about
hear us.
marriage, companionship, compatibility, that type of thing.
Okay. I've never been married, so I don't know what that's about. I'm just listening.
does someone have
Listening, I
a,
just was wondering. I
does
turned
someone
it
have
off for
a,
a little bit, and I turned it back on. So
does someone have a,
I
does,
mean, yeah, I could call back. Yeah, I guess I'll just have to go back to the internet.
well, hold on 1 second.
I decided to call
I
in.
don't think she can hear Rick.
Can you hear Constance?
I'm going to do the same. All right. Real good. Well, I guess
We're here.
They can't hear us or something. I don't know.
Okay. What's your name again?
Connie and Rick.
Oh, there's Larry.
Oh, Jason.
I'm sorry. What's your name again?
Stefan.
Stefan. Okay. I'm Rochelle. We'll talk. I'm
Yep.
pretty sure we'll talk again.
I'm sure we will.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hello, Connie and Rich.
Hello.
Rick, are you still there?
Yeah, hold on 1 second. Let's
Okay.
get this back up again. Hold on 1 second.
I don't know what.
Let's see what's happening here. Some can hear, some can't for some reason.
That's the computers.
Mhm.
Give us 1 second. We'll get back in here and see if we can get this back up somehow.
Welcome to My One Number. If you are the host, press star now. Otherwise, wait. Please enter your PIN followed by the pound or hash. Thank you. There are 4 participants in the conference. Recording did not start because your storage is full. Please log in and delete recordings or purchase more storage from your account.
Wow. I wonder if they've been able to hear us or not, or were we cut
All
off?
participants are muted and they can unmute themselves.
All right, if you want to speak to Tick and Constance, you're on with us now, so go ahead.
Rick, were we cut off from the very beginning, or did it just happen?
It just happened, evidently. It doesn't make any sense to me, but we had 2 ways for people to call in.
The phone lines have been down the entire program. We were listening to it for you.
Oh, the
The phone
phone.
lines have been down the entire program. We were listening to it for you. The phone lines have been down the entire program.
Wow.
The phone lines weren't down for the entire program. I don't know what he's saying, but so anyways, they just went off a few minutes ago.
Okay.
So, okay, so go ahead.
So, okay, thank you, Rick. Don't go too far, honey, because I wanted to reach out to Stefan. Stefan was trying to come on and he couldn't hear us. Stefan, if you're there, could you comment? If you're there, could you?
Yeah, I was just saying that the entire I don't know if the phone.
Well, Stefan, I mean, is your phone line? I mean, could someone else come on right now? Stefan, I mean, the phone lines are open. They have been open. They went down just a little while ago. So the phone lines are open right now. So go ahead. Come on. Anyone wants to come on, say hello to Dick and Constance. You ready to go? Go ahead. It's *6.
Hello, Rich and Constance.
Well, hello.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you.
Your subject tonight is very interesting. It's one that there can be a number of different opinions on. Very difficult to really determine what's the right viewpoint, what's the right opinion. What I'm referring to is several years ago, back in 2001, I was traveling all over Europe, and I was in Berlin, Germany, on their subway. And I was walking out of the subway, going up the steps to the street, and on this big platform, there was a Jehovah's Witness there. And of course, she was, in this case, happened to be a very attractive German girl with blonde hair, blue eyes, and she was standing all by herself, you know, doing what you call doing street work. And back in those days, there was no such thing as a cart, but she was just standing there in a corner all by herself, holding up the Watchtower and Awake magazines. And of course, I didn't know her from Adam, and she had no idea who I was. But of course, she immediately caught my attention. I immediately walked over to her and said hello and so on, and listened to her presentation and whatnot. And she was holding up the magazines for me, and I forget just what exactly the subject was, but she talked to me for quite a little bit, and somehow we got on the subject of marriage and about living together without being married and so on. And I have to admit, she told me something right then and there that really put me back on my heels, something that I never ever heard from any Jehovah's Witness. And it was kind of difficult to answer. And I never told her, absolutely, I never told her who I was. She had no idea. I just pretended, you know, to be interested and so on. And she told me that she believes that the best way for a good marriage, for a happy marriage, is for the two of them to first live together, maybe for 6 months or a year. And she said, then you get to know if you're both compatible with one another. And I think she even mentioned you'll find out even if you're sexually compatible. And so then if you do this for 6 months or a year, then you really get to know the other person, and then you can make the decision, knowing full well what they're like. You can make the decision to marry them or not. And that was her honest viewpoint of marriage, and I got a big kick out of it, because at the time she told me this, she puts her finger up to her lips and says, "Shh." She says, "Don't tell anybody. Don't tell anybody that I told you this." She says, "We as Jehovah's Witnesses, I'm going against what they teach, but," she says, "this is what I believe." It was really odd. So my question to you would be on this issue. It depends on what culture you live in. Whether it's here in America, they can have like Donald Trump Jr. and Kimberly Guilfoyle engaged to be married for like 5 years, engaged, but now of course they broke up. Where and other places and other cultures, like in Islamic countries, Saudi Arabia, also over in India and different Muslim countries, there's no such thing as these prolonged courtships, prolonged engagements. Their whole culture and style is more or less for arranged marriages. So your family, and you go to a certain group, synagogue or whatever, and there's another family there. You in your family, you happen to have a son. The other family has a daughter. The parents get together and will arrange the marriage between the two. What do you think is the smart way, the wise way to approach it?
Well, I can tell you this. If you're a practicing JW, you're not going to be sleeping with someone you're not married to. That's period. Right. And in the Muslim world, they're very strict about that stuff too.
Oh, yeah.
You could actually be stoned to death. Mm-hmm. They have these honor killings if a daughter, particularly a daughter, is having sex outside of marriage. Her brother or her father can kill her.
Yeah, Sharia law.
Yeah, Sharia law. And they call it an honor killing. What do I think is the best way to go? If you want to do things, if you want to do things spiritually, I have never had intercourse with any of the 3 wives that I've had before marriage. That's just a fact. So I kind of believe in that. But with saying that, I've had plenty of sex with other people, other women that I wasn't married to. I regret it. I wish it hadn't happened, but it did. I grew up in the very promiscuous 60s, and everybody 70s. Was messing around with everybody. I think in my father's day, if you got a kiss from a girl after a date, you were doing something. In the 60s, let's face it, you were having sex. If you
60s revolution.
Yeah, it was
sex revolution.
The Bible says you only can have sex with someone that you are married to. Period. So, as a Christian person, that's my stance. What this program tonight really wasn't designed to do was for me or Connie to say what is morally correct or isn't correct. The Bible will tell you that. You don't need us for that. What we're just trying to show is that you're going to have difficulties being married in the Watchtower. There are successful marriages, absolutely. But I don't know what the odds are, but I think the odds are much better if you were married as 2 Catholic people or 2 Protestant people. I think your odds would be better. I think you would have a happier marriage. I have no statistics to back that up. Just that I know in the JW world, you're not supposed to have an interest in getting worldly things or getting money. You're supposed to give just live on a shoestring. If you have any extra money, you send it to the worldwide witnessing work. That's the Watchtower way. And you know what? When you're broke and you're in your 60s and you can't work any longer,
Yeah, or you have health
Yeah.
issues on top of it.
where do you go?
Right.
See, we believe that we're never going to face that eventuality because Armageddon was going to come in 75.
Right.
So, I mean, had I not been told that and believed it, I would have stayed in the Marines.
Right.
I definitely would have stayed in. I would have been retired at 38 years old. I went through the boot camp and the jungle warfare and the Vietnam War, and I was set to just cruise for the rest of my life in the Marine Corps doing stuff that I liked.
And you enjoyed that lifestyle.
I did enjoy it. Yeah,
How
I had good
organized
friends.
it was, and
Disciplined,
the
and
discipline.
I like the physical aspects of it.
Yeah.
I was an athlete, and
Yeah.
you know, I just love being in the Marine Corps.
Yeah.
But no, got to get out because Armageddon's coming, and if you're wearing that uniform, you will be killed.
Well, and the other thing I was going to say is a lot of times in marriages, whether they're witnesses or not, there's four big ones that will enter a marriage where it doesn't survive, where there's a lot of arguing and it doesn't survive. Okay, number one, money. Money's the number one reason, Rich. Okay, number two is sex. Third are the in-laws. They stick their nose into everyone's
Elders.
business. And the fourth are children. And, you can, maybe she had a certain way of raising the kids and he had a different way, or maybe it was a blended family, which makes it more complicated. Maybe she had children from a previous marriage and now, he doesn't have kids or he does have kids and they're all blending together like the Brady Bunch.
Yeah.
And that can really, that's a big challenge for people today, but including witnesses as well. That's a blended family.
To your point
Yeah.
about family sticking their nose,
Oh yeah.
they feel they have the right.
Oh,
elders
my
feel
goodness.
Mark
Yes.
Pillow, maybe 15
Yeah.
years ago, he's been gone quite a while now. Told us on six screens
Yeah.
that every time he had an argument with his wife,
Yeah.
she's on the phone to the elders.
Yeah.
And if you stop to think about it, if you stay in that organization and you become a ministerial servant, if you've got 5 years in as a ministerial servant, you're probably going to be promoted, not appointed, but promoted by the congregation to be an elder. Well, elders don't have happy marriages because they're at the Kingdom Hall. I used to live right across the street from the Kingdom Hall, and I knew all the brothers. I knew what kind of cars they drove. On non-meeting nights, they're at the Kingdom Hall. They're at the Kingdom. How are you going to have a marriage when
Well,
you don't
that's a
spend any
very
time?
good
When you
point.
don't have any time, and even
That's
as
an
a,
excellent point.
even when
That's
I
a
was
problem.
when I was a ministerial servant, Brother Borghi, you want to go on a shepherding call? So I'd say to my wife at the time, Pam, she said, "Want me to go on a shepherding?" Oh, you should go. But
Well, it's like a full-time job, isn't it?
yeah,
Rich?
yeah,
Besides your own full-time
sure,
job. And you have a wife and kids at home in your case.
Yep. And you know what? Do you think when they disfellowship me, they give the damn that I'd get up early Sunday morning rather, and go over there and mow the lawn?
They could care less.
No,
They
didn't
just
matter.
used you for what they could get out of you.
I was a literature servant.
Right.
I was the money guy, did the mics.
Right.
I was always over doing something, repairing something, fixing something.
Sure. For
No,
free.
No,
For free.
they were upset with me because I gave the circuit overseer a hard time, and I was always complaining about being swindled by two brothers, by my brother-in-law and my sister-in-law, and the elders up there wouldn't do anything about it. They took their side.
Yeah. We'll have a show on that, Rich.
Yeah,
We'll have a
we will.
show in
We will.
reference to that with regards to how many JWs want to borrow money from other JWs and then they are never paid back. And if someone's disfellowshipped, then they feel that they don't have to pay them back, which is totally wrong. We'll have a show on that, Rich. There's too much of that going on in the organization as well that you really don't hear, but we would like to discuss that at another time.
Star 6.
Mm-hmm.
Star 6, I know there's a lot of people out there that want to talk about
Yeah, we can hear you now, Stefan. Go ahead.
Okay, sorry about that. I was trying to get in, but the lines were down. But in any event, I'm really enjoying this conversation.
Thank
This
you.
topic of marriage is very important. Can you hear me?
Yep,
Yeah,
you're
we
fine.
can hear you fine. Yeah.
Oh, okay, sorry. This topic is so important because Watchtower really does nothing to prepare people for marriage.
That's
And
right.
if you're a born in, as we talked about before,
Yep.
you have no idea what to look for in a marriage mate because A, you don't know yourself. That's by design. You're in a cult. This potential partner doesn't know herself.
Right.
And all they tell you that's important are spiritual qualifications. In other words, how many hours you do the task that we tell you to do. That's what makes you spiritual, and therefore that's what makes you a good person to marry. Nothing about compatibility.
Right.
If you want
Exactly.
to talk to a marriage counselor or any kind of therapist, they would look at you like you have lost your mind when you say this is the decision that I made based upon those factors. Nothing to do with compatibility. Now, the gentleman called before, we're not going to get off on a tangent on it, but the gentleman that called before,
Yeah.
where he talked about living with somebody and all the rest of that,
Yeah.
there is something to be said
Mm.
about seeing a person in every area of life that you can see them in.
Mm.
And unfortunately, with the way the Watchtower imposes dating, you don't get to do that.
No.
You don't see this person, let's say, all natural, and they don't see you. Why is that important? Because you need to be attractive in all areas of life. You don't get to see this person on good days. You don't get to see this person on bad days. You need to see a person in just about every area that you can see them in. What do they like when they're angry?
Mm.
How do they think? Are they logical? Are they strictly emotional? Do they just run off on a tangent? How does this work? This person conduct their life? Are they neat and tidy? What are they really about? Not what they're projecting to me when they're dating, but what is this person really like? What's important to them? How do they do what they do? Do they even know themselves? On and on it goes.
That's
And a lot
right.
of times, it's going to take a minimum of a year to really see this person, not as they want you to see them, but as they really are. So
Mm.
there is something to be said about spending more time. But of course, in Watchtower, they've got everything locked down. You look at somebody more than 2 seconds, you're fully expected to be getting married. And it doesn't work. That's why I can tell you, I'm a born in my entire group, and I probably had about 30 people that I was friends with and we would hang out with. All the ones that got married, there's not one single couple that's still together. They're all divorced,
I'm not surprised.
and they all married witnesses, but they're all divorced,
Yeah.
and majority of them are on their third marriage.
Wow.
The second marriage is the rebound.
Wow. The
And then
rebound.
after you get past the rebound,
Yeah.
now you're probably in your late 30s and your 40s, and hopefully you understand yourself. You understand a lot more about the world, and now you marry somebody that you're compatible with,
Right.
and you tend to be happy. Now, some never got married again. Some, like I said, are on their third. Some are on the second.
Right.
A lot of them are still unhappy
Right.
because, again, they still didn't really understand themselves. They just got married to just have somebody.
That's
And a lot
exactly
of people, as you start getting to your 50s,
right.
they just want somebody that can help, pay bills and do that kind of thing. So now you got to be really nervous. Is this person really marrying for me, or they're marrying me for some kind of financial security?
That's right.
So this business about marriage is a very, very serious topic because you marry the wrong person, you can really mess up your life.
Oh, it can be a living hell.
See,
And-
Stefan, I think you read my biography.
well, it can be a living hell.
Hey, you read mine too.
Well, the thing is, and with Watchtower, they're married for life. They're married for life. They're supposed to be married.
Well, that's the point.
Yeah.
And this is my point about it. And I can only speak from a male perspective because I'm a male. I can only speak from a heterosexual perspective because I'm a heterosexual. If I'm going to have a woman that I'm supposed to be with for the rest of my life, I need to be happy with her in all of these major areas. And sex is one, how this person looks, is another. How do they treat me? Are they not submissive, but are they easy to get along with? Can I work with this person? Are we on the same page?
Right.
In all avenues. All these kinds of things. Because if those things are not there, it's going to be a long life.
It's going to be real ugly, and it's not going to survive.
I was just talking to a friend of mine on the phone the other day, and he's about 60, and he's never been married. He dated a lot. And I was saying to him, look, if you get the right one, it's heaven. You get the wrong one, it's hell.
Mm-hmm.
That's,
Mm-hmm.
and I said, I've been married 3 times. I've had a lot of living, I just been around.
Mhm.
And I can tell you that from firsthand experience.
Mm-hmm.
You really, and I'll just be frank with the audience. Like I said earlier, I have never had intercourse prior to, I'm going to say this right. I never had sex with any of my wives before I got married. I did live with Connie for a year before we tied the knot, but intercourse
We were not intimate.
We were not intimate.
No, we
Just so if
we
if
made
you
that
think
promise to each other.
we made that promise,
Yes, we
so
did.
and you know what? It's hard to do sometimes when you're living with somebody and I'm in one bedroom and she's in the other. Sometimes it's hard to do, but
That's why you put the lock. I put the lock on
she
the
put
door.
the lock on the door. She did. She did. She put the lock on the door. I didn't know that till she told me after we got married. She was like, I trusted you, but I put the lock on the door. So anyway, just in case anybody out there.
All I can say is you must be well endowed if you're able to be intimate when she's in the next room. That's all I can say.
They don't call me Big Dick for nothing.
Would you stop it?
I'm
Oh
sorry.
my gosh.
All right, I
No, you
shouldn't
got to
say
have
that.
a funny sense of humor.
Yeah.
But
we
you
gotta
know,
joke.
Stefan, you're absolutely right. That's why I always think it's wise for people to wait to get married. I mean, I'm really serious. Even in your 30s, the reason why I say that is because if you get married so darn young, like even in your 20s, if you're both really progressive people in the sense that you like to grow. I mean, I always like to learn. I like to grow. I always wanted to be the best person I could possibly be. I wanted to learn as much as I could learn. That's just me. That's just me. That's who I am. But what I'm trying to say is that if you were 2 people like that and you get married in your 20s, and maybe one is really, into self-development and the other one's not. Well, the point I'm trying to make is that by the time you're in your 30s, it's so easy to grow apart because you're a different person in your 30s than you are in your 20s. And a lot of these witnesses think nothing of that. Oh, I'll get married at 17 or 18 or 21 or yeah. Well, by the time you hit 30, you might not even be the same person because you've grown. You can grow apart.
Yeah, and
That's really important to know.
adding to that, I know in my case, I believed that 1975 was going to bring Armageddon.
Oh, yeah.
And then when it didn't, I had to readjust everything. To me, I was going to live the most fugal life, all nothing, just pioneer. Because Armageddon was coming, I had to tell all my friends and all my family that Armageddon's coming. You got to listen to me, or your life depends on it. They all laughed at me. Armageddon, sure. The Watchtower's been talking about that for a century now, and it's never come.
Well, we all made a lot of sacrifices for 1975.
But the point I want to make is your values change. Okay?
Your values change.
Your values change. I know that it got a lot of elders and a lot of people in my congregation got their nose out of joint when I bought in 1985 a brand new Trans Am. I ordered it from the factory.
My husband's always loved cars.
Yeah.
I have 2.
Yeah. And
I grew up with 4 brothers. They love their cars.
I mean, that's how they are.
They're very judgmental.
And when I get married in 73, just the crappiest car, it didn't matter. Armageddon was coming. 1-bedroom apartment, doesn't matter. But you know what? After a year of marriage, a 1-bedroom got awful small. So I moved to a 2-bedroom apartment. And then after a while, well, we had our first child in that apartment. So then we had to get a house.
And that was unexpected.
Yeah. Well, it was unexpected. Both of them actually.
Yeah.
But
so now you have a 1-bedroom. Now you're expanding to a 2-bedroom.
so now you have to go out and work.
Right.
And I got a job.
Well, you had to work anyway, but you really have to work now.
Well, of
Yeah.
course, you know.
Got more people to feed.
I never had her working. She was going to pioneer and all that stuff.
Mhm.
Got a job for a company called AFCO. I don't know if anybody knows it. It's a defense contractor, but the department I was in, I was making fire retardant paint.
Mhm.
And then they moved me to another department. It was in the defense industry, and I had to quit that job,
Mhm.
you know, because of Jehovah's Witnesses and,
Right.
you know,
With war, huh?
it was war.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I had to quit that job.
And it paid very well.
It paid really well.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
It paid really well.
And there's a lot of pressure when you're a father in the organization
Mhm.
and you have a wife and now 2 kids to support, right? I mean,
Mhm.
you're not on subsidized living. You're not
Nope.
on food stamps.
No.
You know, you were able to buy a home and you're working your butt off to pay the
Mhm.
mortgage and fix that house up, plus work more than 40 hours, 40 to 60
All
hours,
the time.
plus the meetings, plus mowing the Kingdom Hall, right?
Yeah.
And all the responsibilities as a ministerial servant. I mean, it's unbelievable the amount of pressure that people have being a witness.
Didn't even know my kids.
You didn't have time, Rich.
Didn't even
You didn't
know
have
them.
time.
You know.
Because Watchtower, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
They don't really respect families because, of course, none of those governing body
Hey
members,
guys,
except for
if I could
Go ahead.
just make one last statement.
sure,
The other thing that's very deceptive and dangerous about Watchtower, especially for us born-ins,
yeah,
is you've been hearing all your life how bad sex before marriage is, how bad it is, how bad it is. But over time, that operative word or phrase, before marriage, that gets lost, and it just becomes sex is bad, sex is bad. And so I can't tell you how many sisters, because I said we had a friend group of about 30 people. Those sisters would have physical, you know, literal biological sisters. So we'd meet a lot of sisters. And what I noticed was even when these individuals got married,
yeah,
they still couldn't deprogram and open up from an emotional and I guess sexual standpoint.
yeah,
They still could. They were still these rigid. Sex is wrong. The Bible says. The Watchtower, 1973, 1956 yearbook, whatever it was. You know, they found it very difficult to open up, and the husbands, you know, they're raring to go, and the wives are just kind of balled up because of decades of programming from Watchtower.
right,
They can't. They were unable to turn it off,
right.
and that's a very literal danger that happens to a lot of these sisters, especially the born-ins. Now, if you weren't a born-in, that doesn't seem to be an issue. But there seems to be a consistent issue, like I said, with opening up emotionally and sexually, even after you get married, because you've been programmed with all of these talks and Watchtower and Awake articles about immorality.
Right,
And even when you get married, you just can't open up.
right.
So that's
right.
something else that needs to be discussed.
They have a lot of frigid sisters, you know, when they get married, and it's like, oh my gosh, really? I had no idea. My husband was so horny. Really? It's, you know.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
you
it's-
know, the brother, you make a really, really good point. Matter of fact, the best point in the evening. Thank you so much for saying that. I hate to talk about my former wife because she was a really good woman in all respects, but you're right. She was just so frigid,
And she was born in.
and she
was
was
born
well. I
in.
think she was 8 or 9 years
Pretty
old, so
much, honey.
born in,
Pretty
right?
much. Sure. Pretty
It's
much.
like she never asked me for. She never said, "Hey, you know, I'm in the mood." Never.
Mhm,
She never denied me.
mhm.
I could, you know, but it was you couldn't really play. You couldn't do any role playing. You just it was straight. Get in, get out. You know, leave me alone. You know, that's. I mean, he's right because it's like she's been taught that sex is.
Like it was dirty or something.
Yeah, look, she didn't. I saw it as a beautiful, wonderful exercise that I was willing to go 2-3 times a night. And she'd like, oh, we did it last week. What do you want?
Well, see, that's what I'm saying. A lot of
Yeah,
women
frigid.
are very, especially witness, they're very naive about men,
Yeah.
about their libido. They really are, especially when they're young, when the men are young. Yeah. Now, there was a brother that I knew that I was dating when I was at JW. Really a nice brother. Won't mention his name. I know he's out, but I hope he's watching the show. Really nice brother. Very respectful. We went to, we'd go to some discos in the 70s up in San Francisco, and my husband's
Sorry.
Been fighting a cold flu this week. But anyway, yeah, he was a really nice gentleman of a brother. He really was. And we'd go to the Hayes Lilienthal, the mansions up in San Francisco, the touring the Victorian homes. It was really nice, you know. Anyway, he was born in. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make is we went our separate ways. I really didn't want to waste his time because I was not interested in getting married, and I didn't think it was right to string them along. That's not who I am. I never have been like that. And so I had a discussion with him, told him I wanted to go to college, and I wasn't sure how he was going to feel about that, but I felt like I had to, you know, be respectful enough to tell him, and he was fine with that. Anyway, so he was interested in marriage, and just shortly after I had that conversation with him, he became engaged with this other sister that lived in another city. And it was almost like he didn't want me to know, but people know other people, so the word got back to me.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, and then I ran into him, and he was engaged, and I said, "Oh, congratulations!" And I think he was trying to dodge me because he was a little bit uncomfortable, and I didn't want him to feel uncomfortable. There's no reason for that. Okay, so what's my point? So he gets married to this sister she was born in, and anyway, this is a true story what I'm about to tell you. And anyway, so they're both single. They get married, and I went my way. He went his way. Anyway, I had heard, and I know that this is very factual. What I'm about to tell you is he basically, in his marriage, that's why I don't want to say his name, only believed in having intercourse with his wife when they were considering to have a child.
Gee.
And I said to the sister who told me, I said, "What?
Yeah, really.
What? Would you just really?"
Uh-huh.
And she says, "No, Con, I'm telling you, that's the truth." So trust me, it's like family connected. So it came from a very reliable source. And it was just the indoctrination of Watchtower. Basically, oh, you're not supposed to have sex unless you're going to procreate, you know. I mean, I grew up with 4 brothers, okay? My brothers, anyway, they never thought like that. Trust me on that one. But anyway, I thought that was very interesting of how this brother looked at sex with his wife. And I mean, they're still together. How happy is their marriage? I don't know. I mean, sex is a big part of marriage. You better believe it is.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I've just always.
Do they have like 100 kids?
No, honey. You know what? They didn't have any kids. In fact, he adopted. I don't know why they didn't have any kids. I really don't know. But I do know he adopted a child. He and his wife. I almost said her name. Anyway, and unfortunately, that child was a nightmare, an absolute nightmare of a child, which is not always the case, but got in trouble with the law, and it was a flipping nightmare for them. So I don't know. Anyway, last I heard that, you know, this couple, they're no longer witnesses. They faded out, and so good for them. But it's just the point I'm trying to make is, yeah, of course it affects the women, but yeah, it affects the brothers too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what are you supposed to do? Have the manual there and say, okay, well, let's see, honey, can we do this? Can I touch you there? Can I not do that? I mean, it's so ridiculous. Watchtower has no boundaries on anything. They don't respect anything. And this is the other thing, Rich, I need to say. How many times were you at the Kingdom Hall or even not at the Kingdom Hall, and you have some sister, okay, I'm talking about my world. Oh, they always got to give you their opinion about something when you didn't even ask for it, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
They want to give you your,
Right.
and you felt like saying, "Excuse me, when I want your opinion, I'll ask you. In the meantime, keep your lips zipped because I really don't need your opinion." Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
I'll tell you another thing that was really weird to me is if you did date somebody
Yeah.
and you decide, man, I don't think that this person is for me. And then you find out, like, 6 months later, they're getting married to somebody else.
Oh,
And that
wow.
was one of the things that used to really make me put the brakes on a lot of the sisters that I dated.
Yeah.
I'm like, they're not dating because they love somebody and they can envision spending the rest of their life. They just want to get married. It's
Right.
a situational thing. Maybe they just want to get out of the house.
Right.
I don't know. Maybe they're just tired of being alone, and you could just pretty much put anybody with a heartbeat in the box and go for it. The concept of being in love with somebody,
Right.
that just doesn't even seem to cross their mind, and that used to scare me because it's like if you were fantastically wealthy and the opposite sex is just throwing themselves at you. Are they throwing themselves at you because of you, or are they throwing themselves at you because you have a lot of money?
That's
you can never be sure.
exactly right.
No matter how much they say they love you. Well, it's kind of the same thing in the Watchtower world.
Yeah.
We just want to get married. We'll marry the first anything that's halfway decent. And you think this person really loves you, and that's not what it's about at all. That's why I said this whole situation with marriage is really something in the Watchtower world. It really is.
Well, Stefan, you just nail it every single time. Oh my gosh. I hope we get to meet you at the convention.
Yeah.
See you in person. But I was just going to say, see, that's a marriage of convenience. That has nothing to do with love, right? It's that song by, what's her name? What's Love Got to Do with It?
Yeah.
Oh man, I should know her name. Beautiful Legs was on Oprah's show. What's her name?
Tina Turner. Tina Turner.
Yeah, what's love got to do with it? Yeah, that's what she's talking about. What's love got to do with it?
Yeah.
A lot of people marry just for convenience. It doesn't,
Status
or wealth, or
connections.
my family's got money, so I've got to marry into a family that's got money, or my family accepts this family. Oh, that's big with the elders.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh, they got to be with this elder family, and yeah, it's all about status. Doesn't necessarily mean anything about love. There was a sister, I'll just say this, that she was a regular pioneer, and I'd pioneer with her. I was a temporary pioneer back in the day. I'll just say her name's Kathy, because that was her first name. Anyway, her father was a ministerial servant, and the mother, she'd pioneer. Anyway, the father had his eyes on his daughter to get married to this certain family. I won't say, because it's pretty well-to-do. Well, I mean, not well-to-do family, just spiritually strong family is what I'm trying to say. Okay, and anyway, so she ended up marrying this brother, and I thought, okay, well, no surprise. She wanted mommy and daddy's approval, so she married him. Anyway, it was a convention. It was a summer convention, and I had my home, and anyway, Kathy had given me a call, asked me if she and her mom and dad and herself and her husband and her new baby could come and stay at my house. It was a convention, and because of course they didn't want to have to pay for a hotel. And I said, sure, that's fine. Anyway, I hadn't seen Kathy in years. Okay, so let's see, we would pioneer I'm in my early 20s, okay, back in those days. And so by this time now, I was around 27. Okay, and she's married. And like I said, she had a new baby. I don't know how many kids she had. I really don't. Maybe not many. But this is the point. I saw her. I will never forget. My battery saver's on. Okay. Okay. Anyway, I will never forget the look on her face. She was so depressed. And she was always fun and happy and energetic. It had to be because she had just given birth to this child. I don't know. I couldn't even get a smile out of her. I don't know if she was miserable with her husband. I don't know if she was miserable with, being a new mom. I don't know what the problem was, but it was like, oh my word, I don't think this is going to last very long. Okay, my computers tell me I need to plug in. The battery's low. So and of course she's married for life, and she married that brother who, was supposed to have been so spiritually strong. Who knows? Who knows if their marriage lasted or not? A lot of them don't.
Star 6. Somebody out there in cyberspace want to make a comment? Yeah.
It's 12 midnight here.
Hi, Dick.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, hello.
Yes.
Yeah, hi, Dick. It's Tim from Australia. How you doing? Dick and Connie.
Nice to have you on.
Yeah, great to hear you. Yeah, thank you.
I like your program, and it's both of the issues are relevant to myself.
Yeah.
And I'll give you a rundown of what happened to me.
Yes.
So I was married very early on my 21st birthday, and my wife was actually under the age of marriage, like legal. We went overseas, like we literally had to go overseas, and we were kind of pressured into that because of the witness culture.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we would have had to split up or run away, which was an option I was thinking of doing.
Right.
But we both come from very poor family, me especially. And my dad had died when I was 15, so I had zero money. So I've come into it with zero money.
Yes.
I left school as early as I could because being a witness really sucked at school.
Yeah.
So there was no interest in getting further education.
Right.
And then, without touching too deep into it, I started working for a family member, but they were ripping me off blind. So when I've come into marriage, there wasn't any support from the witnesses. There was a big opposition because they didn't politics of the families.
Yes.
And so we got zero support. We got ostracized, talks off the platform, everything. And so you're essentially forced to marry very young without any money. And, so I'm 50 next year. My oldest son is turning 28. So that gives you an idea. We've got 5 kids. And to say that it's been very, very difficult is an understatement. Except that we actually are still together. But none of us are. The whole marriage thing is literally, really, and the way we were treated, probably the start of what made us not bother with the witnesses, because they were such a bunch of hypocrites, and it just was such a sour taste in your mouth that we pretty much phased out the meetings not long after we were married, and really only went to a few. And just kind of moved away multiple times and faded out that way.
Wow.
And I would estimate that it probably put us at a 20-year disadvantage, really. It's just that I had a work ethic of my own, and I worked hard for years and years. So, yeah, I've had the financial pressure, and then I've had the marital pressure as well.
Right.
And I'd probably agree with your statement about waiting, and most of our kids are, they're raised religious as Christian, but they're not witnesses, and they're smart enough to wait of their own accord. They're actually got the sense to kind of do it when they're ready, when you're financially ready.
Right. Right.
Not be rushed in because of stupid beliefs.
Well, honey, my attitude.
So,
Go ahead, honey. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're right. No, that's kind of all I had to say. It's just like it resonates with me because I'm affected on the job level. For so many years I was, and also on the difficulties, which thankfully we were able to work through. But, the only good thing I will say is probably that did help us to move away from the witnesses. And, even though I never was disfellowshipped, we never did anything. I've got family members that haven't actually spoke to me for near on 30 years, just because I don't even know if it's deliberate shunning or if it's just that you're on such a different culture that you just don't resonate with those people. And you can't have a conversation and they're going to bring up something about the truth, and if anyone ever rings me again, I'm just going to tell them, what I actually think. Is in the past I used to just skirt the subject. So, it is like they just don't put any. They don't teach you in any single way whatsoever how to marry, and I guess that's why there's so many problems with people. And to be honest, had we stayed in that religion, I don't think we'd been together. It's probably the fact that we left early.
Interesting. That's an interesting point, Tim. Yeah. Well, I was going to say it's a tremendous amount of pressure for just even a single person today to survive. I mean, since Bidenomics, eggs alone are 161% increase. That's not counting gasoline, beef. I mean, you name it. Rents, mortgages, interest rates. I mean, everything has skyrocketed with inflation. So when you figure being married, now you have two people, okay, and then if you have children on top of it, it's a struggle, and it is very, very stressful. And I'm just so glad that you folks are still together, and I'm glad you're out of the organization and you were able to survive that. But no, I mean, I was not raised a witness. I was not born in, I should say. I was not born in. I started studying after my dad died. I was 16. I started studying, got baptized at 17. But my mom never shoved religion down my throat, and she never shoved, and she's the one that started studying the witnesses, and she never shoved marriage down my throat. So for me, I was not going to get married until I was ready, and I certainly was not going to marry just anybody. That was my whole attitude in life, and it always has been. So did I want to get married? If I found the right person. If not, I was going to be fine alone. I was okay with that. But with witnesses, they put so much pressure on everybody, and that's not good. Because, if you're in a relationship or a marriage and you're not getting along, and you're really not getting along, that's the marriage of hell. That is miserable.
Yeah, because you can't get a divorce
horrible.
because Jehovah hates a divorcing. And you think if it's not working out, for example, or the guy's not coming home for a day or two later, and she's, where you been? Who you been with? Just friends.
Or there's heavy drinking, right?
Yeah, she can't prove adultery, so
Right.
she has to stay in the marriage.
Right, right.
And that's bad.
You know what used to, sorry. You know what used to get me with some of the advice, even when I was young, I knew it was so stupid. Like when I was very first married, I went to a meeting and my wife was sick, and I was just married a few months, and the people were commending me that I went. And I was kind of thinking, what the hell? Like that's not a good thing. Like you should be at home. I kind of thought about it later. It's like, it's actually slack, but that's the culture. They're like, if you went and your wife was at home, how brave you are. Like you've done the right thing. It's like organization at the neglect of your family. And I saw elders that would like neglect their own kids, literally. Like their kids could be saying and doing anything in the house, but because they had so much elder crap, on their plate, that'd be like preparing the meetings, and their kids were the worst.
Oh yeah, the elders' kids. Were they ever? Yes, they were. Oh yeah, they had a set of standards in the organization for the elders' kids versus the rank and files kids. Oh my God, the elders' kids could get away with stuff, and there were no announcements. And I can tell you stories of that. In my
elders could commit some really serious sins.
Yeah.
Tell the other elders, well, we're not going to disfellowship him because we need him.
Yeah.
We need him,
Because otherwise, if you had, say, 4 elders and you lose one, then all 3 of them now have to do the work of 4.
Yeah.
So they don't want to have to carry any more responsibility. Those kind of games go on.
Yeah, and one observation. Sorry, I'll just add one more thing, and then I've got to get off the phone. But I was going to say one observation I've noted that probably is a bit different to yours is that it might be just in Australia or where I've seen, but materialism is actually pretty pushed very hard. Like witness kids get jobs before they leave school. They kind of compete when they get their first cars. Like the young brothers were like, one has to, flex the better car, and they kind of are actually in an eternal competition. And most of them do pretty well. I would say above average. There's not many poor witnesses, with the exception of my own family growing up. I was like in the poorest family ever, but that was almost like you were a scum. Most are actually, I don't know why, but it's the culture. They're very competitive in a kind of a way. Like if someone rocks up with a new car, if someone's got a better one, it's kind of like it's just that little bit of a one-upmanship kind of thing. And I don't know how, but they just always are better off. And they don't tend to go to college, but they seem to be very motivated in promoting their own businesses, and they get their kids into it early, which, I mean, it's not bad on the one hand, but that's just the culture that I noticed here anyway. And if you're actually doing badly, well, then they look down on you, because it's like, oh, obviously you're not doing the right thing, because the Bible says, you know, if you seek first the kingdom, all these things will be added to you. So therefore, because I'm doing well, I'm blessed because I'm a good witness. That is literally the attitude that they kind of, well, I've even heard it said, but yeah, that's just one other thing. But thanks for letting me speak, and I'll just keep listening now because I'm doing stuff here. So
Okay, well, thank you, Tim. We
Thank you for
appreciate you calling
from
in.
down under.
Yeah, it's a beautiful country.
My goodness.
I
I want to go there someday. Australia.
have relatives in New Zealand.
Oh,
Yeah, it's very pretty.
star 6.
Anybody else like to chime in?
Well, before we close it down, I want to bring up something. There's a scripture. I know we don't do a whole lot of scriptures on Saturday night. There's Isaiah 5:20. It talks about when the world is saying what is good is now bad and what is bad is now good, that things are upside down.
Yeah.
I've been watching YouTube, and they have a lot of really good ministers that are exposing the fraudulent ministers that are only in it for the money.
Yeah, there's plenty of them
And
out there.
I took the list. Some of this Connie helped me with. Some I took off of YouTube.
Yeah.
But these are the people that have been exposed in the last 4 or 5 years as being crooked, as being pedophiles, cheating on their wives, cheating on their husbands. Guys like Benny Hinn, who's a fraud, a fake healer. And I got a list of names here that I want to read off to you, and I'm doing it for a reason.
Okay. Let's see. Your battery is running low. Okay, honey. Go ahead, Rich.
Okay, well, I'll try to get in.
Yeah, because it's after midnight here already.
Right.
Go ahead.
Okay. A very popular minister, his name is Robert Morris, has been exposed.
Yeah.
Michael Murdoch, who I hate, he's been exposed.
Yeah.
Benny Hinn, exposed. Joni Lamb, exposed.
Oh, yeah. We just
Paula
said that.
White, exposed.
Mhm.
Rabbi Jonathan Cahn, Kenneth Copeland, incidentally, he's worth $120 million. Do you think he's giving any of that to the poor?
No,
Okay.
He has his own private jets.
They're all in that same multimillionaire class. Joel Osteen, probably a billionaire by now. Joyce Meyer, I saw her mansions on TV, and all her kids got mansions.
She's in Missouri.
Yep.
She's not far from here.
Jesse Duplantis, another
in
millionaire.
Louisiana.
Yep. TD
Jakes.
and Clifford Dollar.
Creflo
Dollar. Thank you.
Has his own personal jets too.
And of course, to top them all off, is the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society, who has amassed $10 billion.
Yep.
None of these guys, they're all multimillionaires, but none of them are as rich as the Watchtower, $10 billion. I'm sure the Catholic Church has more real estate and money than the Watchtower, but the Watchtower is right up there.
Well, we just learned about Joni Lamb with Daystar. She's worth $100 million every year, and now she's worth, her net worth is $500 million, and she has her son's Jonathan, and his wife's name is Susie, and they have a little boy and girl, and the little girl was sexually abused by some family friend, and they meaning Marcus and I'm getting tired, Joni, they tried to cover it under the rug. And basically, it's because, they don't want to lose their $100 million a year. Now, Marcus is dead, but Joni apparently just remarried. But, they don't want their cover blown. So it's like Watchtower. Shh, be quiet. Don't let that out. Keep it quiet.
They all have something in common. You can't.
We don't want to stop the money coming in.
Well, they're all selling books. They're all selling CDs.
Yeah.
They're all selling something, you know.
Yeah.
Listen to their program. They take donations. They tell you how to donate. It's like the Watchtower. We can't leave off my list Jim and Tammy Faye Baker.
Oh, yeah.
Well, Tammy's gone now, but Jim's still around.
Yeah, he served time in prison.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah.
And what you see in all this,
Yeah.
pedophilia, all the way through, immorality,
Greed, Rich.
greed,
Lot of
immorality, and in particularly
Lovers of money.
pedophilia. Now, there's a gentleman that I saw on YouTube today, and he really impressed me.
Shane.
Shane Winnings.
Winnings.
Yeah.
Oh,
And,
you guys, you have to check him out.
oh man, this guy is really
He
good.
was a cop. He was a former cop and busted people who were pedophiles.
Yeah, he was an Army officer,
Yeah,
a paratrooper, tough guy, smart guy.
yeah.
Makes a lot of sense, this guy.
Talks about the grooming of pedophiles.
Yeah.
And what exactly they do. They push the envelope. Maybe we can talk about that some night. That would be good.
All these guys that I just read, I think there's like 20 here
Yeah.
on my list. I'm sure there are a whole lot more, but they're not as popular. These guys are all on TV,
Yeah.
and they all have multi-million-dollar ministries. They're all there's some form of immorality involved in all of these guys, and this guy Shane is exposing them.
Yeah.
God bless him. He's a gutsy guy.
He's on
smart guy.
YouTube.
He's on YouTube. You ought to.
Shane. Shane and
Yep.
Winnings, right?
Yep. Winnings.
Winningss. Check him out.
Yeah.
And he's really, he'll tell you what a pedophile is like
and how they groom.
and how they groom.
It's really something you should really take in.
It's
He's
very
with a
good.
group, I believe it was called Promise Keepers
Yeah,
or
that's what
Oath Keepers, something like that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
You said Promise Keepers.
Promise
is what
Keepers.
you told me earlier.
Well,
today.
it's a really, really good program. You know,
And he's
Six
a Christian.
Screens.
Yep.
Six Screens has been shining a bright light
Yep.
into the Watchtower for 20 years. Rick's done a phenomenal job. Thousands of his own personal hours into it, thousands of his own dollars into this. And, you know, these one thing you'll never hear from all these people I just read, they wouldn't say the words that Rick Ferrin says, don't send any money. Rick's never been selling a
Right.
book or a CD. That's why, you know, Six Screens is legit. I don't get paid for this.
No.
Nobody on Six
No,
Screens.
none of us.
I
do.
love doing it.
Right.
So if you know Jehovah's Witnesses, if you don't want to call them up and tell them about Six Screens, send them a postcard, send them a letter, do it anonymous, but do something
We're
because
kids.
these people.
Jim Baker. Yes.
Anybody there? Anybody there?
Then